Okay. Hatzlacha Rabba. Thank you very much.
Shkoyach. Bye.
Okay. Hatzlacha Rabba. Thank you very much.
Shkoyach. Bye.
Okay. Hatzlacha Rabba. Thank you very much.
Shkoyach. Bye.
Okay.
How are you, Rabbi?
Thank God, John, and you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you. Just very hot.
Well, stay indoors. I just did a funeral in the heat.
Oy, yeah. Same. So you've had it all, didn't you? Had to do a funeral the other day with hail?
With hail, no, I missed that one.
No.
I just missed that one.
So,
Okay. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Rabbi. Hello, John.
hello, Jeff. How are you?
Good, thanks, and you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
It's just the three of us.
Jeff, are you in Joburg or in Cape Town?
Joburg.
Okay. So you also dying from the heat.
Yeah. I reckon it will come to an end next week, but I think we should enjoy it while we can.
Mm.
Oh, Andrew.
The text has gone all funny, Rabbi.
Has it? I'm trying to
heard
fiddle
this.
here. Yeah. I'm struggling to see everybody and do the screen. Give me a moment. We have to start because it's quite long today. I can't see you. Oh, okay. Now I can see you. Hello, Martin. Is that Zev Levine or somebody else? Hello, Jackie. Hello, Andrew.
Hi, Rabbi.
All right, boss.
Okay. We're missing some usual victims.
Still out of focus, Rabbi.
Is that the screen share?
Yeah.
You mean it's there, but it's out of focus?
No, I think it's got the wrong one there. From what I can make out, it should be Miller, chapter 1, shouldn't it, today?
Yeah, circumcision. What do you have?
Yeah, no. I can't really read it, but it's saying something chapter 6.
This is the 3 chapters a day text.
The 3 chapters a day, correct.
Okay, let's close that. What happened to the other one? Okay, give me a moment to get the other one back. Oh no, don't tell me. Don't tell me I lost it. Are you all of you guys on Zoom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Oh, there we go. Okay. Is that better?
No.
No, but it's still out of focus.
Is it? Screen share. Let's start again.
No,
And now?
no, it's still out of focus.
All right, let me try again from the beginning. Okay, share screen. Share screen. Where did it disappear? My apologies. We'll have to go back the old-fashioned way. Okay. Try again. And now,
No,
No, it's still out of focus, Rabbi.
well, now I don't know what to do.
I think it's.
Rabbi, there is an alternative. If you know, if people go onto that first screen on the JTI site, then you can open the text and have it next to the pictures. It's not doesn't affect you if you do that.
Just say that again, Andrew.
Yeah, we can open it ourselves.
Yeah, you can open it yourself on JTI. If you
Correct.
click on the links in the WhatsApps to the JTI, and then just click on Daily Rambam text, and you'll have it in front of you. It's have it on the same screen. It's not going to affect the Zoom call.
Correct.
Let's,
I'm sorry.
What? Rabbi,
How'd
call
you
your
get back to it?
call your 6-year-old grandson.
Yeah, it doesn't live here.
If you go into the WhatsApps, you'll find links virtually from every shiur to, it's called the jti.com/Rambam daily. You'll see it, for example, from Rabbi Darren from Friday. You'll see that link on the WhatsApp group. That'll take you to a site called the jti.com. And on the front page of that, you can click on the Daily Rambam text.
Yeah.
Just being kicked out.
How about now?
Still obscured.
A little bit better.
Want to put
I just tried again. Is it not any, is it legible?
no, Andrew, I think your solution's the best.
You don't see it now?
No.
No.
Why don't we all do what Andrew said? It works like a charm.
Okay, guys, you know what to do?
Yeah, if you've got Chrome, you just go in under Google and you just put the JTI Daily Rambam and it throws it up for you.
Okay, give
Okay.
me,
So we have to yeah.
what, give it to me, JTI, the JTI.
The JTI
Where's
.com.
Rambam Daily.
There's a forward
We go
slash somewhere, no?
to
JTI.com/.
Now, if you go in under, are you on Google, Rabbi?
I'm on my phone. People are asking me. The JTI.com/Rambam Daily.
Correct.
That's it.
Apologies for this. I don't know what the problem is.
Otherwise,
Okay.
one of us can share our screen and just try and keep up with you.
Well, if you can, that's fine.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I'm ready to start. Should I close this one?
I think so, Rabbi. If people have managed to get onto the site,
Okay, I've closed it.
Where's live on Zoom? Ah,
Oh, yeah, I've got it.
Great.
no, I don't.
Brilliant. I didn't know you could do that.
You go on the site, it shows you, it's one of the options. It's quite easy.
Must.
Uh,
On the site where you join, you got live on Zoom, live on YouTube, or daily Rambam text. You just choose the text option.
That's it, yeah.
All right, how are we doing? Can we start?
I think start, Rabbi.
Let's go, Rabbi.
It's getting
Go
late
for it.
and there's 18 halachas to get through.
Go for it.
Okay, so chapter 1, the laws of circumcision. There's one positive commandment to circumcise a male baby on the 8th day. But sounds very simple, but there's a heck of a lot of laws about this. So let me just introduce that some of this stuff is unfamiliar to us because it deals with not only our children, but it deals with our servants, now our household members. In the olden days, you have to understand, things were different. In the olden days, you go back to Abraham, okay? Abraham circumcised Ishmael. He was 13 years old. Isaac was the first to be circumcised at 8 days. But Abraham, it says there, he circumcised Ishmael and all his household, all the male members of his household. He had a whole lot of servants, etc. So if you are the balabos, if you are the, to use an old, outdated and discredited term, you are the boss, you are the master, then you have an obligation to circumcise those who are in your household. And therefore, the Abraham circumcised all his servants and their little boys. It also explains why Joseph, later on in Parshas Miketz, we read how Joseph, when he became the viceroy of Egypt, and he saved the Egyptian economy from famine, and he was the only one who controlled the food supply. And people came to him and they wanted food when they sold their land and they sold their properties for food. And now they're starving and he's the only one with grain. He said to them, if you want grain, go and circumcise yourself. Then I'll give you grain. What does Joseph have to go circumcising the whole of Egypt? What's the mitzvah to go circumcise a bunch of goyim? But the Rebbe actually explains that this was based on the fact that Abraham circumcised all the members of his household. If you are the sort of the master of the house, then you have obligation to circumcise even the non-Jewish males in your household. Joseph was such a powerful ruler, the main authority of the whole of Egypt. Only the Pharaoh was a figurehead above him, but Joseph ran the country completely. The Bible says nobody could lift their hand or feet without Joseph's permission. Therefore, he felt he had an obligation to circumcise all the people under his influence. Okay, with that introduction, Aleph, Halacha 1, it is a positive commandment And if one is unfortunately violates this commandment, he's what we call chayiv kores. Kores is a very serious penalty. It involves premature death and the soul being cut off and losing its share in the world to come. So it's quite a heavy penalty. And that's if one knowingly and willingly refuses to be circumcised. Now, obviously, a child isn't asked at 8 days old, but we'll see that this applies if the child was not circumcised for whatever reason, then became an adult, and then chooses of his own free will not to be circumcised, then he will forfeit his share in the world to come. So who is the mitzvah on? The mitzvah is on the father and on the master of the house for his household. If the father or the master have not done it, they have violated a positive commandment. If there's no father around, then the Beth Din, the Jewish spiritual leadership of every community, whoever it might be, then has the obligation to organize the circumcision of this child. Halacha 2. You may not circumcise a person's son without his knowledge, unless he has transgressed and did not circumcise him. Then the court must circumcise the child against the father's will. This is in a community where Jewish leadership has the authority. Here in Johannesburg today, in the diaspora, we don't have the authority. Even in Israel, the rabbis wouldn't have the authority to do this against the parents' will. But in the olden days, they did have that authority. Now, if the Beth Din didn't do it, and this kid was not circumcised, when he becomes older, when he's bar mitzvah, then it's his responsibility to get himself circumcised. Today we have Jews coming out of Russia, or Jews in Russia today, who are being circumcised at any age imaginable. My late in-laws lived in Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States, and there were many Russian immigrants there, and because they were Russian and they spoke Russian, they helped them get involved in Jewish communal life. And my in-laws helped maybe 500 Russian immigrants to America have a bris, starting from 8 days old to people in their 50s, 60s or more. So obviously when you're older, it's done under anesthetic. So stop saying Eina there. Now, okay, number 3. But now, the point is, as long as a person's alive, he can still be circumcised. So he doesn't lose his share in the world to come until he dies. Okay? So if he dies and he was not circumcised his whole life, willingly and knowingly, then he loses his share in the world to come, is chayiv koros. Halacha 3, Gimel. Okay, I'm going to run through the next few quickly because it's not practiced today. Number 3 through number 6 are all to do in the olden days when people had non-Jewish slaves, which was still rampant in the olden days. Then they had an obligation to circumcise those slaves or the sons of their slaves. And that's what 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 deal with. Sometimes it had to be done on the 8th day of the child's life. Sometimes it had to be done immediately. If you acquire a slave who is beyond 8 days, you have to do the bris immediately. Okay, let's move on to number 7. If we have time, we'll go back to between 3 and 6. But it's a bit late because we had technical difficulties earlier. So number 7, ger, a convert. What is involved in conversion? There are 3 elements to conversion. For male, circumcision. For male and female, immersion in a kosher mikveh. And in the olden day, and the acceptance of the Jewish way of life, the acceptance of all, to practice all the mitzvahs, big and small. And in the olden days, there was a fourth element that you had to bring a korban, an offering in the temple. Today we don't have a temple, so we only have the three. For a woman, it's only the two. So if a person converts and joins the congregation of Israel, he has to be circumcised. If he was already surgically circumcised before he became Jewish, and that circumcision is kosher, then you just have to draw a little blood. You draw a little bit of blood, and you say the brachas and do all the things that you do at a bris. Likewise, he says, a child who was born circumcised. Have you ever heard of such a thing, guys? You're all muted. So I can tell you that Rabbi Gerson, who's a Moyle, told me a few years ago he had a case of a kid who was born circumcised. Anybody know in the Bible, a famous biblical character was born circumcised? Anybody know who? Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses himself, was born circumcised. So in such a case, you just take a little bit of blood and you do the bris ceremony. Then the end of 7, he speaks about androgynous, a child with both male and female genitalia, also is circumcised on the 8th day. Similarly, a child born by cesarean section. I never heard of this one. A child who has 2 foreskins should be circumcised also on the 8th day. Anybody heard of that? 2 foreskins? I never heard of that. Number 8, this is very important. When is the time for circumcision? Only during daytime hours, during the day. It says, Ubayom Hashmini, and on the 8th day you shall circumcise the flesh of his first foreskin. It's a line in Vayikra, Tazria. So Bayom Hashmini, the Gemara says, Bayom velo balayla. It has to be by day and not at night. So it has to be after the sun has risen and before the sun has set. We have a son who's a Chabad Shliach in the island of Kauai in Hawaii, who had a son just over 5 years ago, and he just celebrated his birthday. And my wife traveled there for the bris. And I think it was about a 40-hour journey to get from Johannesburg, South Africa to Hawaii. You have to get to New York, then to a major schlep. And so they made the bris. We'll soon read that normally a bris we know is done first thing in the morning, right? We'll discuss that momentarily. But there they waited for the bobbin, so you could do it as long as it's before sunset. So they said they'll have a late afternoon bris. And her plane was a little bit delayed. So she mamish got there to the house literally minutes before sunset. But if she had not arrived in another minute, they would have had to do the bris without her, even though she traveled 40 hours to get there, because it has to be done during the day. Whether it's done on the 8th day or it's a delayed bris after the 8th day, it still has to be done only by day and not at night. Let's look at number 9. If it is the 8th day, then Bayom Hashmini, says the Torah, on the 8th day, come hell or high water. Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, Pesach, Yom Kippur, doesn't matter. Tisha B'Av, if it's the 8th day, you have the bris on the 8th day. I remember we had a bris in Sydenham Shul on Pesach, on Rosh Hashanah during the service. So if it's the 8th day, then you have it even on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Normally, we're not allowed to do surgery on Shabbos and Yom Tov, but this is the positive commandment of the Torah, which supersedes the prohibition against work, and therefore you have the bris on Shabbos and Yom Tov. But only if it's on the 8th day. If it's a delayed bris, then you don't have it on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Somehow, it's a funny thing. Delayed brising usually always happen on Sunday. Can you work that one out? I don't know. It's a strange phenomenon. I think there's a little bit of hanky-panky there. You should really do it as soon as you can do it once the doctor and the moil is happy to do it. The end of 9, he says, if a person has tzoras is the the leprous curse. You're not allowed to cut it off. You have to wait till it heals. What if he has this baby has a tzoras on his member? And if you're going to cut off the foreskin, you're going to take off the tzoras, which is a violation of the Torah. You do it anyway, he says, because the positive commandment of a bris supersedes the negative commandment of cutting off the tzoras. Number 10, just as circumcising our sons supersedes Shabbos, so even the servants that are part of your household, the slaves, would also supersede Shabbos. Number 11, if the baby is born circumcised, and if the child is born in the 8th month of pregnancy, before his development was completed, he is considered halachically like a stillborn, God forbid. Now today we have children who are born at 7 months, at 6 months, sometimes even earlier, and miraculously they survive. With God's miracles and medical science developments, we've seen little tiny children the size of a margarine box have survived. In those days, it didn't happen. So he says here, if it's born in the 8th month, it's virtually a stillborn. We don't have any hope that it's going to survive. Likewise, a born by cesarean section, or androgynous child, or 2 foreskins, all these cases do not supersede Shabbos, so it would be done on the Sunday. Now, number 12, the child is born bein hashmashot. Literally means between the suns. It means between the time when the sun has gone down and the moon has risen, or the stars have come out. Now, when it comes to Shabbos, we bring Shabbos in early, before sunset, and we let Shabbos out late, only after 3 stars, only after nightfall. So that twilight zone that we call dusk is about roughly a half hour in Johannesburg between sunset and nightfall. Is that day or is that night? Can we take a vote here? Unmute yourselves. Is the twilight zone of dusk day or night? No comment.
Okay.
Huh?
That's right.
Okay, the answer, if you said day, you're wrong, and if you said night, you're wrong. The answer is, it's a machlokes. There's different opinions. The Talmudic sages debated whether it's day or night, and therefore we do not have a halachic consensus, and it's a suffix, it's a doubt whether it's day or night. Therefore, if a child is born, say on Friday, after sunset, before nightfall, when will he have his bris?
If it's a Saturday, go further, Rabbi.
He cannot have it the next Friday because it might only be the 7th day. He cannot have it the next Shabbos because it might be the 9th day, and you can only do Shabbos if it's definitely the 8th day, and here we're in doubt. So a boy who's born on Friday after sunset, before nightfall, will only have his bris when? On Sunday. If we have time, I'll tell you a good quiz that you can dine out on that subject. But let's go back to number 12. So he's brised on the 9th day, which will be the Sunday. Number 13. This again, if a child is born in the 8th month of pregnancy, if the child's nails and hair are completely formed, we assume it's a completely formed infant that should have been born in the 7th month, but whose birth was delayed, so the baby may be carried on the Shabbos It's not considered dead weight like a stone and may be circumcised on the Shabbos. But if the hair and nails were incompletely formed, then this child is an 8-month child, and we're worried that he may not survive, and it may not be moved or circumcised on Shabbos. But if this child should survive, how do we know if a child survives? If he lives 30 days. In halacha, viability is established after 30 days of life. Once a child has survived the first 30 days, he's considered viable, bar kayoma, and then he can have his bris. Number 14. Again, if it's born in the 7th month, if the limbs are completely formed, we assume he will live. He's just born prematurely. That's not a problem. In the olden days, in the Bible, we have stories of children who were born prematurely and survived. So if he's well enough, he could even have his bris on the 8th day. But more often than not, premature children, the doctor and the moil says we have to wait a couple of weeks till he. I remember in New York, they had a rule that you had to be 6 pounds. The moil would not do a bris if the baby was under 6 pounds. Here, now you take a blood test and you see what the, with the yellow and jaundice and all that. But so the doctor and the moil usually consult, and when they're both happy, then you can have the bris. If you're not sure if it's the 7th month or the 8th month, he may be circumcised on Shabbos. Let's move to 15. 15 is an interesting one. So the child's head, the mother's in labor, and the baby's starting to be born. The head emerges from the womb, from the birth canal. When? After sunset. The rest of the child only emerged after Shabbos night. So the head emerged between sunset and nightfall, the doubtful time that we spoke about. The rest of the body emerged after nightfall. What is the status? When was this child born? The answer is that we determine birth by when the head comes out. If the head has emerged, then he's considered born in the period of twilight, and he will only be brised on Sunday. Likewise, he says in the second paragraph of 15, if you're born on Yom Tov, if the bris does not supersede Shabbos, it does not supersede Yom Tov either. So it'll only be if it's a healthy boy on the 8th day, born naturally, not by cesarean section, then you'll have the bris on Shabbos or on Yom Tov. 16, if the child is not well, we don't do the bris until he recovers. And there's interesting halachas. You have to ask the moil and the doctor here. It depends. Sometimes, as soon as the baby is healed, you could have the bris immediately. I've been advised of a bris on a moment's notice. The doctor, the moil said, it's fine. He's been recovered from whatever issue he had. You can have the bris today. You must have it today without delay. In an hour, they put together a bris. Very often, if it's a more serious illness, we say we should wait a full week after the child has been considered healed. For a full recovery, we wait another week before we have the bris, so you have plenty of notice. So it depends on the nature of the illness that the moil and the doctor will decide. Number 17, we have the case of jaundice. If the child is yellow, on the 8th day, we would not do the bris until his blood recovers and his complexion returns to that of an ordinary healthy child. You know, when in the olden days here, 40 plus years ago, who remembers the moil Ronnie Emanuel? Ronnie Emanuel, he did my son Mendel's bris, and it was a miracle. My son's bris took place on the 8th day. Why was it a miracle? Because Ronnie Emanuel had glasses that were tinged with yellow, I think. Every second kid was jaundiced. He wouldn't do the bris on the 8th day. He was so firm. he was so machmer on jaundice, excuse me, that if Ronnie Emanuel did a bris on the 8th day, it was considered very special. So not every mile is, sees so much yellow, but it's clear that if there is jaundice, and today we have blood tests to take to see if it's an acceptable level or not. Likewise, if his complexion was very red, then there's something wrong there, and we should wait as well. Finally, number 18, sad story. If a child died from the bris, and then the same woman had another child, and the second child also Nebuch died from the bris. What does it mean? They were hemophiliacs. That's probably what happened. And they were bloodletters, and therefore, from the bleeding, they couldn't stop the blood. And 2 children died. It says you should not do a bris on the 3rd child. Certainly not on time. You should wait until he's bigger and stronger, and then it's safe to give him a bris. Look at his last lines of the chapter. We should not circumcise a child who is afflicted with any sickness at all, since the danger to life takes precedence over everything else. Circumcision can always be performed at a later date, but you cannot bring a soul back to life if the kid has died, God forbid. So if 2 children in the family died, we wouldn't give the 3rd a bris until we sorted out that he was able to do it. Now today, I can tell you that hemophilia can be managed and controlled. Baruch Hashem, the doctors have a handle on it, and they have they bring blood supply, or they do it in the hospital, and they have the blood supply waiting, and they can do a blood transfusion immediately. And Baruch Hashem, today it is not a problem as it was once upon a time. Any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question if you like.
Rabbi, can I ask this? The Russians that came to America,
Yeah.
if they didn't have supporting documentation when they circumcised, are they regarded as a ger?
Well, this is a very big issue, which has to do more with Jewish status and Jewish identity, not just the bris. Today, we have Russians, there's maybe 1 million Russians in Israel today, or 1.5 million.
And in Israel, yeah.
And there's a big hot potato issue, religiously and politically, because many of them are not Jewish, halachically. They came for a better life. The Aliyah department was taking as many people as they could. They weren't looking to see if they're halachically Jewish. So today you have hundreds of thousands of Russians in Israel who are not halachically Jewish, and they're mixing with the population, and there's lots of intermarriage. And then you have all kinds of problems. Can you give him a bris? Can you marry him? Can you bury him in a Jewish cemetery? It's a nightmare in Israel. And there's no documentation. There's hardly any, nobody comes from Russia with documentation. There's no organized Jewish community life. In the 70 years of communism, there was no Jewish life on an organized level. Today, thank God, it's much improved. So they would have to decide, the rabbis make a call, they would say, can you speak Yiddish? They would look for other signs to show that they are of Jewish lineage. Do you know any Jewish swear words? Somebody said kushan tochas. They said, okay, you're Jewish.
So they're not required to go through a conversion.
Well, that of course, if we cannot prove that you're Jewish, we would say, listen, if you want to do it properly, go through a conversion. We'll make it easier for you because you're not just a non-Jew coming off the street. You have some Jewish connection here. Maybe you had a Jewish father or Zayda, whatever. So they'll make it easier, but it becomes a hot potato, and the left wing in Israel tells them, don't convert, you're Jewish, and don't listen to the rabbis and all that. It's a very big problem. I'm gonna end with a quiz that you can ask your families and friends, okay? This is a cute one. triplets are born to a woman on Friday, late afternoon, early evening. The 3 boys. The first boy pops out before sunset. The second boy pops out after sunset, but before nightfall. The third boy pops out after nightfall. So that's in a span of 33 minutes, the 3 boys are born, one before sunset, one after sunset, one after nightfall. When will these 3 kids have their bris? Assuming they're all big enough and healthy enough to have it on the 8th day. When will they have their bris?
The first one on the Friday, the other 2 on the Sunday.
First one on the Friday is correct, born before sunset, so clearly he's born on Friday. The second one, Martin, you're close, but you weren't quite listening to what I said before. The second one was born after sunset, before nightfall. So next Shabbos, he cannot have his bris because it might be the 9th day. Next Friday, he cannot have his bris because it might only be the 7th day. He can only have his bris on Sunday. The one who's born after nightfall on Friday night is clearly born on Shabbos, so he can have his
he'll have it on
bris on
Shabbos.
Shabbos. So
Okay.
one will have his bris on Friday, one on Shabbos, one on Sunday. Okay, so you can dine out on that one, okay? Okay, sei gesund, everybody. Have a good week.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Kodesh Tov.
Bye-bye. Good Chodesh, yes.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I'm starting, if anybody's interested, I'm starting a new series at Sydenham Shul. You're all welcome. You don't have to be a member of Sydenham Shul. I'm starting a series on the 10 Commandments, the basis of our faith, tonight, 8 o'clock on Zoom. So you're all welcome to join me.
Thank you.
It'll go for about 6 weeks, I think. It'll take us to get through the 10 Commandments. So you're all invited. Thank you very much.
What is the address? How do we get onto it?
Can you send me a
Sure.
can you send me a WhatsApp and I'll send it to you?
Thank you. At 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock tonight, and for the
Okay,
next
fine.
6
Thanks.
for the next 6 Monday nights. Till the
Great.
holidays. God bless. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Rabbi. Bye.
Bye. Thanks,
Thank
Rabbi.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, Rabbi. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Rabbi. Bye.